We have some big misinformation to debunk. Trump and Tulsi Gabbard are out here trying to deflect from the Epstein issue by bringing up Russiagate again. They're saying that Barack Obama was involved in 2016 in basically spreading the so-called Russiagate hoax. Here's the problem though, Russiagate was not a hoax. Holy cow, these people did not even read the Mueller report. They just go out there and say, no collusion, no Russian collusion. The Mueller report said no collusion. I didn't read it, but I heard my favorite right-wing host say that it said there was no collusion. Well, I'm sorry to say, but that's a very, very shallow understanding of both the Mueller report itself, but also the Russiagate issue. The Russiagate issue was not just about collusion or no collusion. And in fact, the whole issue with Russiagate was whether or not there was Russian interference in the 2016 election. The idea was not that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin had a quid pro quo where Trump would be assisted by some Russian effort in order to win the 2016 election and then go in there and super serve Putin. No, it was about interference. It was about, there was all this stuff that happened that seemed just too good to be true for the Trump campaign, and Russia was found to be behind a lot of it. So I'm going to have to go in here and look through some parts of the Mueller report for you, and I'm going to tell you what it actually said. And what it said was not just, no collusion, end of story, Trump is innocent, keep your hands off him, he's a great guy, he's perfect. No, there's some pretty damning stuff in there, even if they admit there's no direct evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. So first of all, there are 2 volumes to the Mueller report, Volume 1, Volume 2. And basically what Volume 1 talks about is the interference itself. So they say that Russian interference in the 2016 election was sweeping and systemic. Sweeping and systemic. Gee, that doesn't sound like it's all just a giant hoax. Gee, that doesn't sound like the type of thing that Trump and right-wing media were telling us after they purported to have read the Mueller report and alleged that it totally exonerated Trump. Sweeping and systemic. Let's go a little further down. Major attack avenues included a social media information warfare campaign that favored candidate Trump and the hacking of Clinton campaign-related databases and release of stolen materials through Russian-created entities and WikiLeaks. Sounds like something's going on there. Doesn't sound like a big old nothing burger if you ask me. Sounds like this is a little bit more of a thorough thing. Russia also targeted databases in many states related to administering elections, gaining access to information for millions of registered voters. Sounds like something's going on here. Sounds like Russia is interfering. Sounds like Russia is interfering in a way which helps the guy who supposedly thinks that Russiagate is a whole hoax. Oh, it's just a hoax. I didn't collude with them. Therefore, I'm totally innocent, baby. No, that's not what happened. Let's talk about the special counsel investigation that uncovered extensive criminal activity. The investigation produced 37 indictments, 7 guilty pleas or convictions, and compelling evidence that the president obstructed justice on multiple occasions. Mueller also uncovered and referred 14 criminal matters to other components of the Department of Justice. Yeah, they have just memory hold this whole thing. They forget that people were actually arrested in connection with this. They were arrested. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Now I get, you can have a phony arrest, you can have a phony indictment. It could be bad. But really all this, it's kind of like the whole thing where Trump had 91 criminal charges. So you might argue that 1 or 2 of those were trumped up nonsensical charges, but are you really gonna say, oh yeah, all 91 of them, they're just baloney, they're just nonsense. It's just a witch hunt to target Trump because he's against the deep state. Really? 37 indictments here? Let's look at this. Trump associates repeatedly lied to investigators about their contacts with Russians, and President Trump refused to answer questions about his efforts to impede federal proceedings and influence the testimony of witnesses. Yeah, why do they feel the need to lie? Why is that? If they're so innocent, why do they feel the need to lie? What is going on here? So it's just like the thing with Epstein, really. Why does Trump need to keep saying, we're going to move the goalpost back. Oh, we're going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, and there's no Epstein files. They actually were written by Obama, Biden, Hillary Clinton, James Comey, and John Brennan. That's the deal. Really? Just a few months ago, you were saying we're going to release the Epstein files. On the campaign trail, he promised to release the Epstein files. So what new things did you learn in this time? It's all just a loyalty test for his supporters. But yeah, that's even more stupid than the Russia thing. The Russia thing obviously is like, okay, we know that you guys are up to something. This is just sleazy nonsense. But yeah, they need to lie. If there's nothing going on, why do they need to lie about their contacts with Russian officials? I mean, I get, okay, we were making contact with Russia. Maybe that's not some super, good looking thing. It's not a good look, not good optics. But still, if it's so readily obvious that you're not doing anything wrong, why not simply tell the truth? The truth works out in the end. A statement signed by over 1,000 former federal prosecutors concluded that if any other American engaged in the same efforts to impede federal proceedings the way Trump did, they would likely be indicted for multiple charges of obstruction of justice. Ah, yes, the old man who is just completely above the law. Yep. As he talks about law and order and complains about how we have a two-tier justice system, that was something Ron DeSantis would say in the 2024 Republican primary as well. We have a two-tier justice system. Republicans are treated worse than Democrats. No, Republicans are treated better than Democrats. And if a Democrat did this, they would probably be in prison. Rich boy Donald Trump gets to go out here and say, no, I'm special. I get to evade this. No collusion, by the way. This is, a two-tier justice system. I shouldn't say that Democrats are completely immune, but for crying out loud, when you're uber wealthy, even if you have a D next to your name, D, R, whatever, you're going to get away with a lot of stuff. And Trump is a perfect example of this. And I do think that, he has a unique ability to just escape, get away with stuff. And he's getting away, unfortunately, with saying, I did not collude with Russia and Russiagate was entirely a hoax. And somehow all of these NPC Trump supporters are out there saying, it's a hoax, it was a hoax, nothing happened. No, they just made it entirely up. No, there was actual investigation, stuff that you guys just couldn't bother with reading, sadly. The investigation identified numerous links between the Russian government and the Trump campaign and established that the Trump campaign showed interest in WikiLeaks releases of documents and welcomed their potential to damage candidate Clinton. So these things I've read, they're all from Volume 1. This next stuff here, this is still Volume 1. In 2015 and 2016, Michael Cohen pursued a hotel/residence project in Moscow on behalf of Trump while he was campaigning for the president. Then candidate Trump personally signed a letter of intent. Senior members of the Trump campaign, including Paul Manafort, remember that guy? Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner took a June 9th, 2016 meeting with Russian nationals at Trump Tower, New York, after outreach from an intermediary informed Trump Jr. that the Russians had derogatory information on Clinton that was part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Beginning in June 2016, a Trump associate, quote, forecast to senior Trump campaign officials that WikiLeaks would release information damaging to candidate Clinton. A section of the report that remains heavily redacted suggests that Roger Stone was this associate and that he had significant contacts with the campaign about WikiLeaks. Ah, yes, Roger Stone, that guy with perfectly clean hands, a guy who definitely was not involved with the likes of Richard Milhouse, Nixon, Mr. Watergate. Yeah, no, that guy could never do anything wrong. The report described multiple occasions where Trump associates lied to investigators about their contacts with Russia. Again, Trump associates George Papadopoulos, Rick Gates, Michael Flynn, and Michael Cohen all admitted that they made false statements to federal investigators or to Congress about their contacts. In addition, Roger Stone faces trial this fall for obstruction of justice, 5 counts of making false statements, and 1 count of witness tampering. This was back from a little bit ago, this report here. So it's not literally this fall 2025 that they're talking about. But yeah, this was all that was going on during Trump's term. And these people just didn't pay attention to any of it. They got what they wanted, which was no collusion, and they just hammered that and hammered that. I have to say, part of the reason that I'm so of the belief that Democrats would not have been able to get away with this if they were in the same position is the Democrats are not good with narratives. The Republicans get to go out there with their narrative, the MAGA Republicans, and they say, no collusion, no collusion, no collusion, and they shoot the programming out. And eventually centrists will be like, oh yeah, well, we got to admit there was no collusion, right? They're all saying it, so the Mueller report must have said that, and none of them actually read it. So the report contains no evidence that any Trump campaign reported their contacts with Russia or WikiLeaks to U.S. law enforcement authorities during the campaign or presidential transition, despite public reports on Russian hacking starting in June 2016 and candidate Trump's August 2016 intelligence briefing warning him that Russia was seeking to interfere in the election. The report raised questions about why Trump associates and then candidate Trump repeatedly asserted Trump had no connections to Russia. The Mueller report states that if the special counsel's office felt they could clear the president of wrongdoing, they would have said so. Instead, the report explicitly states that it does not exonerate the president and reports that the Office of Special Counsel accepted the Department of Justice policy that a sitting president cannot be indicted. Furthermore, the Mueller report details multiple episodes in which there is evidence that the president obstructed justice. The pattern of conduct and the manner in which the president sought to impede investigations, including through one-on-one meetings with senior officials, is damning to the president. Yeah, not a very good representation, this whole no collusion thing. It doesn't really represent the idea that, oh no, he's completely innocent. Russiagate was all a hoax. No, it was not. It was a legit thing. There was Russian interference, as this Mueller report here makes clear. So yeah, look, hindsight is 2020. We can all talk about what could have gone better in Trump's first term. I think it's possible Democrats could have focused more on attacking Trump based on policy rather than Russia. I do think that ultimately, Russiagate is not harming people's pocketbooks. It's not, taking healthcare from people or causing climate change. So, focus on it with respect to, how we go about Trump and his corruption, but not necessarily hammering away at it ad nauseum. I think policy needs to be the number one thing we talk about. Trump signed a terrible tax bill in his first term that the media just didn't hammer quite as much as the Russiagate thing. Russiagate was a big deal. It was not a hoax. It doesn't establish that Trump colluded with Russia. It doesn't establish that without Russian interference, Hillary Clinton would have won. But there's a whole heck of a lot more here than the idea that, he didn't collude and the Democrats, they just trumped up this nonsense Russia thing in order to call him an illegitimate president and to ruin his first 4 years. I see so many Republicans over on X fantasizing about locking Barack Obama up, getting revenge against him, saying, oh yeah, now the chickens have come home to roost. He thought that he could get away with it, but then Trump got elected again in 2024, and it's finally time for him to face justice. No, you're not gonna get one over on Barack Obama. Look, you could certainly sue him in court or try to prosecute him and annoy him, but I'm sure he'd have the best legal counsel ever. You could be a pain in his butt, but you're not gonna take him down. So yeah, it would be interesting to see them try that. But yeah, Trump and his team are a slimy bunch. Always assume the worst in them unless they give you a reason to not do so. It's kind of like, a reverse burden of proof. Okay, we have to presume these people are up to no good because they've shown us at this point that they don't mean well. They don't mean well for the country. And Russia is certainly not the worst thing that's going on with his campaigns or his administrations, both from the 2017 to 2021 one and his current 2025 edition of Trump, which is the worst term by far, I would say. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Show this video to a MAGA supporter who says, oh yeah, Russiagate, it's a hoax, or any centrist, God forbid, who says, Russiagate was a hoax. Yeah, man, I don't know about Trump. He's not that great, but they were really mean to him with the Russiagate thing. No. The Russiagate thing was legit. Trump derangement syndrome might exist in some people. Some people might go too far and complain. They might say, oh, he's just orange and I don't like his hair. And, they might be too obsessed with him and they might hate him. But there are a lot of great reasons to hate him. And Russiagate is one of them, I'm sorry to say. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. And I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.